Andy Murray has long been known as one of the most cerebral players of his generation, a master of nuance and strategy who often outthought opponents rather than overpowering them. But in a recent interview, Murray pulled back the curtain not just on his strengths but on his limitations, particularly when it comes to translating his own understanding of the game into the role of a coach. Reflecting on his brief coaching stint with Novak Djokovic, Murray was strikingly self-critical and reflective. The experience, he said, forced him to confront aspects of his own skill set he hadn't fully considered before. Specifically, he admitted that coaching Djokovic revealed a gap in his ability to communicate technical aspects of the game, something the 24-time Grand Slam champion was actively seeking during their time together. It's very different being a player and a coach, which I expected, but obviously when you're working with someone at that level, it probably shows your strengths but also your weaknesses as a coach. One of those weaknesses, he explained, was technical instruction. Most ex-players are sort of weak at the technical side of the game, and at times, Novak was looking for a lot of technical feedback, and it was something I didn't really feel comfortable with. That discomfort didn't stem from a lack of knowledge, but rather from a lack of experience in translating technical understanding into teachable guidance. Coaching isn't simply about knowing the right answer, it's about knowing how to communicate it in a way that fits the student's needs, expectations, and developmental stage. In Djokovic's case, Murray was working with arguably the most complete player of all time, someone who operates at a level of detail that requires surgical precision in both explanation and intent. When Djokovic seeks out feedback, he's not asking for generic affirmations. He wants clear, analytical, and implementable input, and that Murray found was where he came up short. To address that, Murray hasn't just walked away from coaching. In fact, the experience has pushed him toward continued self-improvement. He's since reached out to Louis Kayer, a coach widely regarded for his technical expertise and someone who had worked closely with both Murray brothers over the years. Kayer's skill in dissecting and rebuilding technique made him the ideal mentor for Murray in this next phase, not as a player, but as a coach. If I was going to coach again in the future, I'd want to work on that and learn from someone who's very good at that, Murray said. Louis Kayer is one of the coaches who I worked with during my career on the technical side, and he's fantastic. He's someone who I've reached out to since my time with Novak to potentially get some coaching for my coaching on that side of things. Murray's perspective here is significant because it goes against the grain of how many ex-players view coaching. It's easy to assume that experience at the top level automatically qualifies someone to lead others, but as Murray is quick to point out, the demands of coaching are different from those of competing, and those who spend years on the tour may not spend enough time working with players who actually need fundamental instruction. Coaches that work with younger players are used to doing that, he said, and are actually stronger than a lot of the coaches that work on tour, because once a player is sort of 22 years old, you're not trying to overhaul their game and technique. It's like little changes here and there. Murray's appreciation for the craft of coaching has grown as a result. That growth also ties back to the foundation of how he developed his own tennis brain, through a combination of his mother Judy Murray's philosophy and his own love for problem solving. At school, I really enjoyed doing math, he said. It was the one subject I was really engaged in at school. That analytical skill transferred directly into his approach to tennis. He was never the biggest hitter or the fastest mover, but he could see patterns unfold, read opponents, and break down matches like a chess master. Judy Murray, too, played a central role in forming his tennis mind. She was always more sort of encouraging about learning to play the game, like finding different ways to win points and using different skills. She wasn't so much focused on technique, he recalled. That emphasis on creativity and adaptability over textbook mechanics became one of the defining traits of Murray's game. When he moved to Spain at 15, training with older, stronger professionals who were physically outmatching him, it forced him to lean even more into that problem-solving instinct. At that stage, I wasn't able to physically keep up with them, so I had to find different ways of winning, which wasn't just based on power and strength. This combination, early encouragement to think independently on court, matched with a natural disposition toward analytical reasoning, helped Murray develop into one of the most tactically astute players of the modern era. But coaching, he now realizes, demands more than tactics. It demands patience, clarity, and a completely different relationship to the game. It also demands vulnerability, being willing to admit what you don't know and what you still need to learn. As for whether he'll coach again, Murray hasn't ruled it out, but he's cautious, thoughtful, and clear that it would have to be the right situation. I think I would if it was the right sort of project, he said. I would enjoy working with a younger player and sort of trying to influence them from a younger age. His desire to work with British players is strong too, though he emphasized that it would depend on whether the fit made sense. When Djokovic called, Murray wasn't actively looking to return to the tour in a different role. "I was not missing tennis and was desperate to get back on the road," he admitted, but it was a pretty unique opportunity. That last line says a lot about how Murray views his post-playing career. He's not chasing headlines or trying to build a brand off his name. He's looking for meaning, just like he did as a player, whether it's as a mentor to a young British hopeful or part of a broader developmental role. If and when he returns to coaching, it'll be with eyes wide open about what the job truly entailed. That reflection on coaching doesn't just illuminate Andy Murray's mindset, it also offers a deeper insight into Novak Djokovic himself, who is arguably one of the most technically complete athletes the sport has ever seen. For Djokovic to be seeking technical feedback, even at 38 years old, says everything about his mentality. This is a man with nothing left to prove. He holds 24 Grand Slam titles, has beaten every generation of rivals across 2 decades, and is widely viewed alongside Federer as the most technically proficient and efficient player in modern tennis. His baseline game is airtight, his movement has long been unmatched, and his return of serve is still the gold standard. And yet here he is, asking questions, probing for marginal gains, and engaging with coaches not to be told what he already knows, but to find something, anything that might sharpen him a bit more. That level of humility and curiosity, especially from a player who has spent over 400 weeks ranked number 1, is extraordinary. And it's especially telling that Djokovic was looking to Murray, a peer and former rival, for that kind of feedback. He wasn't searching for someone to overhaul his game. He was looking for an outside lens, another brain to audit his process. And it's clear now that the help he was seeking was not about mechanics alone. It was about keeping every edge sharp, both technically and mentally, even if it meant stepping into areas that traditional coaching structures don't always prioritize. But if there's one limitation Djokovic can't outwork, it's time. His problem isn't technique, it's age. At 38, the physical cost of staying at the top is rising steeply. His level remains elite, but the recovery windows are longer, the risk of injury higher, and the ability to sustain peak intensity over 2 weeks of Grand Slam tennis and 5-set matches increasingly fragile. That was clear at the 2025 Wimbledon Championships, where a bad slip in his previous match appeared to take a serious toll. By the time he faced Jannik Sinner in the semifinals, Djokovic was physically compromised and unable to summon his trademark elasticity in court coverage. He wasn't outclassed tactically, he was diminished in movement and timing. He couldn't chase the wide balls, couldn't slide into the open corners, and couldn't defend with the same reactive speed that once made him nearly unbeatable. Sinner didn't need to break Djokovic down, he simply had to keep the rallies physical and exploit the space left by a slower, less explosive version of the Serbian. That's the paradox Djokovic is facing. His brain is as sharp as ever, maybe even sharper. His hunger is intact, his willingness to learn undiminished. But the body that once responded instantly to every demand is beginning to resist. And unlike a technical flaw, no coach can permanently fix that. What Djokovic can do, and clearly is trying to do, is squeeze every remaining ounce of quality from his game. Whether that's through refining stroke patterns, seeking new perspectives, or optimizing match prep. That's why his openness to coaching, even at this stage, is so revealing. He's not afraid of change. He's afraid of stagnation. In that sense, Murray's admission about the challenges of coaching Djokovic only deepens the respect for the Serbian's approach. He doesn't want people to nod along. He wants to be challenged. He wants to be questioned. And most of all, he wants to keep evolving, even if the thing holding him back now isn't his technique or tactics, but the natural clock that eventually catches up with every great champion.